In the devastating aftermath of the botched VIP paedophile investigation, the retired judge who reviewed Operation Midland came to a clear conclusion. The instruction to believe a victim's account should cease. Sir Richard Enrique, who reviewed the way the Met handled the fantasist Carl Beech's allegations, also said it's the duty of an officer to investigate facts, and the policy of believing victims will generate miscarriages of justice. So why does new guidance issued last month by the College of Policing say anyone who makes abuse claims should automatically be considered a victim, with the intention that victims are to be believed? This is a licence for even more dangerous fantasies to come forward. And just think, if this is what can be done to the reputations of some of the most powerful people in the land, God help the ordinary man and woman in the street. The College of Policing terms of reference are to provide the skills and knowledge necessary to prevent crime, protect the public and secure public trust. Their new guidance on historical sex abuse will do the complete reverse.
Strong stuff. I tend to agree with you about it. I think what we've seen is a failure to balance out the presumption of innocence with the insistence that victims must be believed, however fantastical the allegations, as we saw in the case of Carl Beech. Carl Beech's allegations against household names who were dishonoured sometimes and went to their deaths without having had their names cleared. A completely shameful episode. And Richard Enriquez gave a statement, and there was an absolute catalogue, a litany of the failures of the Metropolitan Police that he pointed to. So let's just remind ourselves of some of the conclusions that Sir Richard Enriquez made in his review into Operation Midland that went so badly wrong. The review said poor judgment and a failure to accurately evaluate known facts led to the investigation of prominent public figures. It claims a major contributing factor was the culture that victims must be believed. And it says several failures can be explained by a disproportionate belief in the witness, known as Nick's credibility.
You see, in my view, it completely goes against the whole tenet of the British justice system. You're innocent till proven guilty. But the moment they decided Carl Beech was a victim, we had an extraordinary press conference where a very senior police officer said his allegations were credible and true. What right has a police officer got to say the allegations are true? That's what the court does. But it was because, according to Enriquez's report, which was brilliant, 9 months it took him to write it, they started from the presumption that this man was telling the truth, even though he was alleging a former Prime Minister, a future Home Secretary, a future head of the Armed Forces, a head of the MI5, a head of MI6 and a former MP had raped and murdered children. Extraordinary.
Let's hear from the Metropolitan Police and the Deputy Police Commissioner, Sir Stephen House.
Serious mistakes were made in Operation Midland, and we have apologised for those. I apologise for them again today. However, we do not agree with everything Sir Richard wrote in his report. The allegations Nick made were grave and warranted investigation, and we believe those involved in applying for the search warrant acted with due diligence and in good faith at the time. I am deeply, deeply sorry for the mistakes that were made and for the ongoing pain that these mistakes have caused.
We haven't got long enough to list the mistakes.
There were 43. He identified 43.
OK, but let's pushing it on. I mean, in order for that not to happen again, should we call victims complainants?
Yes.
So
why is the College of Policing, which sets the rules by which the police operate, I might add, the chairperson of the College of Policing has never been a police officer, never worked in the police. Why are they sticking with this tired, wrong
We should reel back
system?
a bit, because this was about incompetent policing. This guy said the charges warranted investigation. Yes, they did, but they weren't investigated. The names of those guys, of Leon Britton, of Harvey Proctor, of Lord Bramwell, were put out there, and let's not forget who put them out there. It was Tom Watson, who shamefully abused parliamentary privilege, the Deputy Labour leader, to actually name
Has
these
he
people.
apologised?
Well, no, he hasn't. No, he hasn't apologised. But the thing is, an apology isn't enough. Let me just say, I also want to say as well, this calls into question not just the impartiality of police, but their intelligence and seriously, and their morality, because they heard the names of a couple of posh Tory people and thought, we'll have him. We'll have him, and they didn't bother to investigate.
Let me just the College of Police, and we've got to give their account of it, and they say, following the Henriquez review, the college examined the evidence on belief, which demonstrated a key reason for victims not disclosing abuse was fear that they would not be believed. We engaged extensively across policing and recommended that the National Crime Recording Standard reflects a balance of believing an allegation at the point of recording, followed by an impartial investigation, which is led by the evidence, whether that leads towards or away from the allegation.
But that's not what they've done.
No,
they are still saying if you complain of an historical sex abuse, that you are to be believed. And I think this now leads us to, actually, I think we've now got to change the law completely. I think you should not be named in a sex case unless you've been charged.
Let's listen to Paul Gambaccino, who's talking about exactly. He was named, if you remember, in child abuse allegations.
Being arrested on a preposterous allegation is one thing, but having that arrest publicized is another. While I was still in the Charing Cross police station being questioned, every relative I have in the world was approached by a member of the British media.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about. What I think these police have done in not investigating properly, they will now stop rape victims, women or men rape victims coming forward. They've actually made it harder for them, because the believing thing now, they've been told that they can't actually do it, that they have to investigate. We know they're not investigating. So it's going to make it much harder for women, I think, to come forward, their sloppiness and their incompetence.
But that's kind of the point. We have this all or nothing approach when it shouldn't be like that. There's a serious difference between saying anybody who makes an allegation must be believed under all circumstances, and then we pursue the accusee as if we know for sure they're guilty, and saying that if somebody makes an allegation of sexual misconduct, then the balance of probability shifts away from the automatic presumption of innocence, and police have to pursue it neutrally. Now, let's not forget, if somebody makes an allegation, that is not some throwaway thing. They're pointing the gun at themselves as well as the accused person, because we've seen what happened with Christine Blasey Ford when she made the allegation against Brett Kavanaugh. Her life was torn apart in the media. So people do not do this lightly. So let's not forget that.
Kind of Carl Beach did.
No, but sure,
he's a fantasist and a
and he
paedophile.
paid compensation by the police.
Yes,
Andrew,
exactly.
your point earlier was the right one. When that police, I remember watching it on the news that night, when that policeman said, "We believe that what Nick is saying is credible and true."
It's the truth.
You changed the whole.
You
changed the whole investigation.
Suddenly, Nick, the fantasist, was being believed by the police, and there hadn't even been a trial.
And believed by us.
Of course, the public believed
all
it.
of this because Cressida Dick said she heard exactly when you heard it and thought that can't be right. She did nothing. She was assistant commissioner. What's his name? Hogan Howe. He was in charge at the time. He's now sitting on a big fat pension and in the Lords, and no one's asking him questions about it.
The worst part of that, it wasn't an error by that police officer in that press conference. It was agreed beforehand. They would say it was credible and true. Devastating. Yes. Harvey Procter, I interviewed him. It was so emotional to interview him, because he said 20 police officers came to his home. He said, "I'm very worried about it leaking. It won't leak in the press." He turned on Sky the next morning. He was leading the news.
Yeah.
Absolutely appalling.
I think
you need anonymity.
I think your other part is right. Anonymity. Anonymity.
Yeah. Until you're charged.
And it might go beyond just sex crimes.
Yeah. Yes. Let's hear what Harvey Procter had to say. He said this on Sky last week.
Okay.
The premier police authority in the country believed that I was a serial child murderer. That has been a heavy burden to bear, as I think is well known. As a result of what happened in Operation Midland, I lost my job, my home, and my repute. I am not the same man as I was in March 2015. I doubt I ever will be.
Harvey Procter being very dignified after his ordeal. Do you think, Andrew, that if we did extend anonymity to those accused of rape, it would do something to address the situation we have now, which is the conviction rate for rape is so low that some people are saying the crime has essentially been decriminalised?
Yeah, and of course the argument about naming a suspect early on is that if there are other victims, they'll come forward because they've been named in the press, they've been named on the internet. Yeah, but I just think now the damage that has been done, not just to these people's reputation, but young men who've been named in a number of rape cases where it's unravelled. if you're 22 and you're named in a rape case and it's not true...
Stop it.
And, you know, the way the police officer we just saw before, the way he apologised, you know, they may have apologised, but there's still no acknowledgement of what they've done to people's lives, of the damage they've caused.
The worst police investigation ever.
Carol, you introduced Tom Watson into this, so I ought to just say what he said, which is, I have always said that it wasn't my place to judge whether sexual abuse allegations were true or false. That was for the police. The police asked me to encourage the hundreds of people that came to me with stories of child abuse to report their stories to the police. That is what I did. So that was what Tom Watson the statement he's given us.